What is up? Welcome to Every Single Guitars, where my goal is to review every single guitar ever made, or at least that is my goal. Today I have a vintage. Guess what this is? Just try to guess. Is it a Gibson? Is it an Epiphone? Is it a, what is this? It's definitely a Les Paul body, but why is there this bolt, which is not common for a Les Paul, because Gibsons have a set neck. Today I have a no brand, an unbranded Gibson Les Paul custom lawsuit made in Japan, I believe. To be honest, I'm not really too sure what this guitar is. I bought it off some Asian, I think he was like Vietnamese. He was like a Vietnamese dad in like his 60s. And he told me his uncle got it in Asia back in the 70s. You know, I could tell that he wasn't lying because, you know, he didn't really seem like that kind of type. It definitely is an old guitar. It's not a new guitar. It's not a guitar made within the past 20 years. You could just see by there's a couple wear on the guitar. There's like rust. I believe everything is all original from what I can tell. I don't know what this guitar is. I don't know the brand. I did some research online and there were some unbranded Japanese made lawsuit Les Paul type guitars made in the 70s or 60s or 80s, and I feel like this was one of it. On the headstock, there's no logo. There's actually scratch marks, so I'm not sure if he scratched out the original logo, but you can clearly tell that they modeled this after the Les Paul custom. You know, the headstock is like a Les Paul. You know, the block pearl inlays, the customs have that from the first fret. You know, from a distance, if I just went like this, you know, people can mistake this as a Les Paul custom, but you know, if I take off my hand and just show you the headstock, you can tell that it's not a Les Paul because there's no brand. But nevertheless, it was an interesting guitar, so I decided to pick it up and see what it's like. First impression, really heavy guitar. Really heavy guitar. Like I said, I prefer heavier guitars. You know, this is on the heavier side. I prefer guitars of this weight, but I haven't owned too many Gibson or Les Paul style body guitars, and for me personally, I don't really like the Les Paul body when you're playing it sitting down. I'm more of a Fender guy, and I have a really heavy Fender Strat, all walnut Strat, and even though it's heavy, and then when I put it on my lap, it just stays still. But for Les Pauls, like if I put it like this, this will just fall like that. It's just, there's so much weight on this side. I just don't like how it's not balanced. For an SG, it's completely opposite. The guitar would go like this, you know? But for a Les Paul, like, I personally do like the Les Paul design, but for a heavy Les Paul like this, it's just too much weight like this. It's just not comfortable for me personally. You know, apart from the weight, in terms of like build quality, like this is actually very well built. You know, the knobs and the tuners are on the cheaper end. Like I said, you know, a lot of Asian companies, when they, a lot of Asian lawsuit companies like, you know, Suzuki, like old Ibanez, Takamine lawsuits, and probably this. The sound and the build quality is good, but they sometimes cheap out on the hardware, like the knobs and stuff, and I could clearly tell that's the case for this as well. You know, in terms of quality of how it's built, it's very well built. I would easily put this over any modern day Epiphone, hands down. Very well built. It's heavy, so it gives you like a firm sense like of a quality guitar. And these tuners are pretty interesting too. This part, the tuning knobs are not the greatest. It's kind of like an inferior metal or a plastic, but this part that connects to the tuning knobs is actually really high quality metal, and there's like an artwork that's like engraved in it, and it actually looks pretty sick. I don't know if it's hand carved, I don't think so, but it's a pretty like elaborate like flower looking artwork, which I thought was pretty interesting. But for the wood, even though it's a really heavy guitar, I don't think this is real wood. I think this is a laminate. I'm not sure what kind of wood they used, but I can tell that it's a laminate because the wood grains just, it doesn't look real. Kind of looks printed on, similar to the Epiphone SG made in Korea that I reviewed a couple weeks ago. It's kind of a similar concept, but this looks more realistic. Another interesting thing about this guitar is, you know, like I said in the beginning, a Les Paul or Gibsons, they're known for having a set neck, you know, so the guitar is just all one part. Like a Fender Strat or a Tele, You can easily take off the neck and replace it with whatever you want. That's why they have the back plate. But this guitar, it also has a back plate as well. I haven't taken it out. I probably should. Maybe there's more information for me to figure out what specific guitar model this is. But let me plug it in and see what it sounds like. But even though it's a you know, a 70s lawsuit, no brand, made in Japan guitar, I mean, I played around with it. It sounds pretty good, surprisingly. Yeah, I really wish that I knew what specific lawsuit guitar this is, because I've never seen a lawsuit with no markings, with no brandings. Usually, you know, there's some information on the back plate, you know, something might be carved in, like the factory it was made, or there's like some kind of number. But there's absolutely no markings of any kind, except for the engraving of like the flower thing on the back. So I'm really curious what this is, but just from a guitar standpoint, it's a very well-made guitar. It's a very heavy guitar, but it's a good quality guitar and with a surprisingly decent tone. Yeah, 1970 lawsuit Les Paul style, Les Paul custom style, electric, great, affordable guitar.